Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome back. It's been a while since I've been on doing some interviews. It's been a couple weeks, um, but we're back. It's I'm gonna kind of call it season two. Not really. It's a season two, but um, yeah, It's been a little bit since I've been on the live doing some interviews and stuff. I had some stuff I had to take care of, and but we're back. And on tonight's show, we have the great Todd Morey, the announcer Todd Morey, because I get that mistaken because sometimes there is a race car driver named Todd Morey. He is the announcer Todd Morey or the Monster Jam Todd Morey, if that helps out. The other Todd Morey is the short track guy. Yeah, he runs the short track super series if I'm correct. And so we are back, and we're gonna mute Todd real quick, and then we'll get him. We'll get going. All right, hello Todd. Welcome to the show.
Hey, how are you, man?
So, well, I'm a little, for everybody that's on the camera, I'm a little puffed up. I had a bloody nose right before we were getting ready to go live. So I'm a little bit puffed up right now, so I might sound a little...
For a bloody nose.
I might sound a little different. But, so, just give me a little rundown how your 2020's been so far and how COVID how it changed everything and stuff.
Probably as weird as everybody else's. My wife and I had a huge plan of racing and events and, not just motorsports stuff, but we work for a few promoters that do other things. And, right after Dirt Car Nationals, we were supposed to head to Sebring, and we were going to work for the Lexus experience at the Sebring 12-hour. And it's like a walk-through thing that the fans can do, and we build it. And then we would hang there and keep all the show cars and everything inside the Lexus experience wiped down. It's a fan experience deal. Well, we got a call that's canceled. So we're like, that's weird. We didn't realize how big COVID was at the time. And so that was kind of the beginning of the end. And so I'm like, man, I got to work. So we took our bus and we came to New York. And been working on my brother's house on and off throughout the summer, doing some events, got some calls from the World of Outlaws, went and did some work with them, some announcing, some pit road work for Dirt Vision, and just kind of picking up as I could. And I'm like, man, I was supposed to race this year. Monster trucks got killed by COVID. I mean, they can't survive without fans. Pay-per-view doesn't really work for a monster truck deal, so bought a four-cylinder, had trouble in turn 4 and 5, wrecked that thing, put it on a frame machine, came back, and actually, as you look at the total, I forget what his name is. There's a guy that does a rundown of upstate New York or New York and Vermont drivers, and I think we only started like 8 or 9 races towards the end of the season, and ended up 40th out of 90 drivers. So for a handful of starts, we had no points. We had to start like 18th, 19th, 20th, and ended up finishing top 5 in our dual overhead cam class pretty much every time. So yeah, it's been a weird year. Just got out of the woods. I was a little bit of hunting, and here we are after your bloody nose.
Yeah. So for the fans at home that do not know, what got you started into racing? Who was there a person, or was there were you just a diehard fan, or what got you into wanting to say I wanted to do this?
Yeah, my dad. So apparently, I don't remember, but apparently I was at Fonda at like 6 months old, back in 1979, and first driver I remember liking was Phil Beavers, number 36 car. He was a modified driver. And just for the next 12, 13 years, just started watching and enjoying and going every time I could with my dad. Syracuse Super Dirt Week. I was at Super Dirt Week in 1983. That was my first one at Syracuse. And that was kind of fun. That's my first memory of Syracuse anyway. And so my dad knew Paul Montanaro over at Dodge City Speedway in Cobleskill, and he's like, hey, he's looking for an announcer, and I'm like, well, I'll give it a shot, I'll try it out. Ended up, so the flagger at Dodge City was Joe Chris. So him and I together kind of moved up and worked our way through. I went and announced at Caroga Creek Raceway. At the time, Bruce Richards had a go-kart track off of Turn 2 at Albany, Saratoga, way back behind, and I announced there. So I was announcing go-kart races 3 nights a week, and getting paid to do it at 13 years old. And then Bruce gave me a shot to work with Danny Martin or Jim King. One of those guys.
They were both.
Anyway,
they were both back. I think both.
Got up into the tower there. Did some announcing. Did some pit interviews, stuff like that. And then at 16, Rick Lucia took over Fonda, and he had open like what would you call it? Open interviews for all positions.
Mm-hmm.
So I was the only announcer that showed up.
Yeah.
So he's like, okay, well, you're in. So I went there and I did like 4 or 5. At 16, I did like 4 or 5 shows by myself. There was no other announcer, and then Jim King rolled in. He did a deal with Rick Lucia, and I announced to Jim King. I believe it was the last season Lou Lazaro raced, and Jim King and I called Lou Lazaro's final race together. I was 16 or 17. And then Paul Small called me, and he said, hey, I'm going to do some radio stuff. Do you want to come be our pit road guy for our radio? It was WALL radio. Didn't pay much, but it was an experience.
Yeah.
And we went and did a few radio shows together, similar to a DTD or a Dirt Vision or Flow Racing. Just early onset, but it was only audio. Just radio stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And where'd I go from there? So I went to Syracuse at 17, and Joe Murata let me. I went up to the tower, met Glenn Donnelly, Joe Murata, Shane Andrews, all those guys, and Joe Murata let me call the Sportsman race at Super Dirt Week at 17, and that was like, holy crap, this is huge. I was beside myself. Syracuse was like the holy grail to me.
Yeah.
As a kid, so got to go do that. Maybe you have a follow-up question. I'll talk forever. So
No, you're good.
So, anyway, so I did that, and then just announced locally. I've announced at Devil's Bowl, Fonda. Did some work at Lebanon Valley on pit road. Announced at Rolling Wheels before it closed. Where else did I go up here? Man, there's been so many places. Canon.
Yeah.
But anyway, so I moved. So a business opportunity. I got married. Got married really young. I was 19. I don't remember. So a business opportunity came up. At the time, I ran my own construction company.
Mm-hmm.
At the time, there was a huge opportunity in Florida to get into my in-laws' business in stucco.
Mm-hmm.
So I went down there and I ran stucco crews, bought a house down there, and kind of got out of racing for a little while. I would watch everything. I mean, I always, anything I could watch, I'd watch. And then a local track down there, which is now Freedom Factory, is Soto Speedway in Bradenton. I became really good friends with Johnny Sapricone. His dad owned the racetrack.
Okay.
And I heard he said something about my hair, announcer's not going to show up. And he's sick or something. I'm like, well, I'll do it. And he's like, what? Because I didn't tell anybody that I could do any of that. So I just was working down there and never really I went to races, but I never really got into anything. So, and this is pavement stuff. Totally different.
Yeah.
Actually, the first pavement race I ever called was there. So I went there, announced, and they're like, you're hired for the rest of the season. I'm like, well, I don't really want to do that. And my in-laws were into pavement racing, and they gave me an opportunity to drive. That was the first time I've ever driven a race car. It was in Florida on pavement, and really enjoyed it. I went and tested a Sportsman, big, wide tires. So basically the same setup as the thing looked like a super late model. on
Okay.
pavement.
Yeah.
Like with the Five Flags, but it
Mhm.
was smaller motor and some things were some components were stock and they weren't fabricated components. But anyway, I tested in one of those cars and did pretty well. So I initially said I didn't want to announce there, but I started to do that so that I could make more connections because I wanted to get in a seat. And from there on out, I got into they call it a bomber class down there, but I got into a bomber, which I guess would be a street stock here, not quite a pro stock, but a street stock. Got into a bomber and won. Got into the girl was like second points or leading or something, and her dad called me and said, "Hey, can you drive her car?" Because apparently the car at that racetrack, the car keeps the points, the drivers don't. Or they made some exemption for her. So anyway, he's like, "Can you fill in for her?"
Yeah.
Well, I'm a pretty skinny guy, and so I fit in her seat, and it was pretty comfortable. I was a little taller, so my knees were kind of up a little bit, but it was all right. And went and practiced, and won in her car. And her boyfriend finished second to me, which is kind of funny. But a great family. I'll never forget them. The Ostrovskis family, Ralph and Sheila Ostrovskis, salt of the earth, great people. Their daughter Jessica, Cameron, her husband now, all great people. And then I got a couple more top threes with her car, and ended up getting an offer to drive a pro truck. That was awesome. Love the pro truck. I'd love to do it again. It's expensive.
Yeah.
I was able to pull a little bit of sponsorship and do that. So that the driving side has been it's been just as I can do it. It's not like I don't come from money, so I can't be like, "Hey, Dad, write me a check for $50,000. Let's go race." I can't do that.
Yeah.
So, but anyway, that's how the driving kind of got going.
And then after that, you ended up receiving the deal with Monster Jam, and you first started off announcing, and then you got to hop in the racing in the truck. What's it like hopping into a monster truck with that much horsepower and that much power?
So I need to back up just a touch.
Okay.
So I went to. It's weird. NASCAR led me to Monster Jam. Weird story.
Yeah.
So I'm announcing part time, I'm racing part time, and I'm walking through the fan zone at Daytona, and Ken Squire walks past me, and I'm like, "Ken," and he's like, "Yes." I said, "How do I get to where you're at as an announcer? How do I achieve that level?" And he said, "Well, first I'd have to listen to you announce." And I said, and I reached in my pocket and I said, "I have a demo disc right here." And I had a disc I always carried with me. And I handed it to him and he goes, "That's preparation." And I said, "Will you listen to it?" He said, "I'll do you one better. I'll go to my car right now and listen to it." So he goes, "Don't move, stay right here." So he went to his car, I guess, to eat lunch or something. And I didn't move. I just stayed there. It's Ken Squire. I'm staying where I am. So he went, listened to it, came back and said, "I need you to call Ed Clark at Atlanta Motor Speedway. Tell him I sent you. Here's his number." So I called him, like, first business day, which would have been a Monday after Daytona. And I said, I called the number. I said, "Hey, this is Ed Clark." "Well, this is Todd Morey, and Ken Squire said to give you a call." He goes, "We have auditions. We need an announcer at Atlanta Motor Speedway for the Truck Series, Xfinity Series, Cup Series." It was nationwide then, but anyway, top 3 series. So he gave me the date and all that stuff. So I go there, and I'm going to get to monster trucks, I promise.
You're good.
I go there, and there's a lot of announcers in the lobby. And I'm like, oh my God. There's like 40 people there. And so I go into this room, big board room, and this big long table, and all these people. And at the end of the table is a TV monitor. And Ed says, "Now, if you're a true announcer and you're a true fan of the sport and you know NASCAR, any race I turn on, you should know that year the drivers, the sponsors, the team owners, all of it. I'm going to turn this race on, and you're going to announce this race for us for as long as we need you to." And when he turned it on, it was Casey Kane and the Ray Abraham number 9 that year. And I knew that. Jeremy Mayfield was in that race. I mean, that's how long we were talking. So yeah. I announced 3 laps of the race from just this monitor. And he goes, that's good, that's enough. So we'll let you know. And I'm like, oh, this is bad. This. So I go home, and 770 area code calls me 2 weeks later, which is Atlanta. And I said, hello, and he goes, hey, this is Ed. I said, how are you? And he says, well, I'm good. And he said, you're our new announcer. And I'm like, wow, this is crazy. I'm going to announce NASCAR. This is nuts. So I'll be the at-track announcer with a gentleman by the name of Ozzy Altman and Ken Squire.
Ozzy.
And there's one more.
I know.
I'm trying to remember the guy. Benny Baticki.
Mm-hmm.
Go ahead, I'm sorry.
Yeah, I know Ozzy pretty well. I met Ozzy, came to Malta. Oh, when they did the Jack CD show, he was announcing with Dan Martin. I was able to meet him out in the yeah.
Got fallen on some bad times with health here recently.
Yeah.
But yeah, so that was our group, and I did. I announced at Atlanta for 2 seasons, maybe 3. And then the second year I was in Atlanta, Charlotte, I announced at Charlotte as well. They moved me up there, and I announced at Charlotte Motor Speedway. So I did Atlanta and Charlotte. I did the K&N East race, or K&N West race at Phoenix for Speed 51, a couple other things. So I met Scott Douglas at a race, and we started talking about Monster Jam and how it's a totally different announcing experience than NASCAR is. So he had me go to Ocala and announce Monster Jam there with him as a trial. And I did well enough to where they actually have an announcer school that you go to for Monster Jam. So I went to their school. It's a free 4-day deal. And then they put all the new announcers in the stadium, and we all announce different portions of an event. And ended up getting a arena tour of my own as an announcer, and started meeting a lot of these independent teams. So Monster Jam, if you go to a Monster Jam show, let's say at what's the local arena? Is it Times
Union
Arena in Albany?
Yeah, or the Civic Center in Glens Falls. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. So you'll have at those shows you have like 6 trucks.
Yeah.
Well, four of them would be owned by Monster Jam. You probably have Gravedigger, El Toro Loco, Monster Mutt, and Monster Mutt Dalmatian, something like that. But then you'd have 2 other trucks like Bounty Hunter and Iron Outlaw. Those two trucks are on one team, but they're an independent team. So Monster Jam owns, like, if there's 6 trucks, they own 4, and they bring in 2 others. So I started talking to the independent teams, like, how do you get into this? How do you develop drivers? How does all that work? And I wore down one team enough to give me a test. That was Jimmy Cretin, him and Don. They own Two Extreme Racing,
Mm-hmm.
Bounty Hunter, Iron Outlaw, Scarlet Bandit, Knucklehead. There's a few other trucks they own. But anyway, I flew out there to test the truck. Ended up doing well enough to be like a fill-in driver for them. And then they had a guy leave, and I went full-time as Monster Jam driver. And Monster Jam rule is if you're a driver, you're not an announcer. So that stopped my Monster Jam announcing. I did 2.5 seasons with them, and then I went to work for an independent monster truck team. And then got to travel all over the country. I have 3 states I haven't seen. I've not been to Montana, I've not been to Hawaii, and I've not been to Alaska. But other than that, I've been a lot of places.
Yeah. So
that's how I got driving.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. So for people at home that don't know, when you hit a jump in a monster truck and you land, what's that do? What's that? It might be a weird question. But what's that do to your head and neck and your body? Is it like?
So safety-wise, not much, because you have everything I wear at Fonda in a 4-cylinder.
Yeah.
I wear in a monster truck. Everything that the NASCAR drivers, Formula 1 drivers are wearing, we wear. It's basically a NASCAR setup. You have a NASCAR seat, full containment. I don't want to say NASCAR seat, but like I use a LaJoy seat, full containment Randy LaJoy seat. Headrests, custom built for my body. Got Simpson gloves, Simpson suit, Simpson helmet, shoes, the whole 9 yards. The head and neck restraint, everything is basically the same. And if your shocks are set properly and your air pressures are set properly in a monster truck, it's literally like landing on a pillow. The problem is when you don't have those settings just right, and you land odd.
Yeah.
Sometimes you hit a jump, and whether it's a car you're hitting, or a van, or a bus, or a pile of dirt, it'll throw the truck a weird way sometimes. So sometimes if you're not prepared for, your landing, it could hurt a little bit. You had a bloody nose earlier. In Atlanta, the old Georgia Dome. I was 30 feet in the air, landed in a weird way, and I don't want to be gross, but all the snot came out of my. I mean, literally, but I thought it was blood, so that's why I was scared. So I'm like, that I had blood all over, but it wasn't. So it blew all the crap out of my face. Imagine finishing your freestyle thinking you're bleeding all over yourself. But I've seen guys land and bite their tongue in half.
Ew.
I've seen guys land and chip teeth. But
Yeah. Dennis Anderson, for a fact.
It happened. It happens. But I'll tell you, I'm not gonna lie to you. It's weird. The first time you're driving a monster truck and you're looking at a car or you're looking at a van and you're like, I'm supposed to run over. It's not natural to run over something, but you have to.
Mm-hmm.
And so once you do it and you realize, hey, this is fantastic, then you do it faster and you do it smoother. It just takes time to learn. And now it's just second nature. I mean, I'm 100% honest with you. I haven't been in a monster truck this year because of COVID.
Yeah.
I had opportunities there. They didn't work out. I've announced monster truck shows, but I haven't been in one this year. But I'm fully confident I can get back in, and it's just like riding a bike.
Mm-hmm. So you mentioned Two Extreme Racing with Jimmy Cretin and all them guys, and when you first started, you had a teammate, Trent Montgomery. How was he towards you as a teammate?
He's an interesting individual. He's got this racer's mentality. So going up and down the road, he's fine. A lot of the time when he's driving the rig down the road, I was sleeping. When vice versa, if I was driving the rig down the road, he's sleeping. So because you're so beat after a 3 or 4 or 5 show weekend that the biggest thing you want to do is sleep.
Yeah.
So, but when it got to the venue, to the racetrack or to the arena, he's all business. And if you didn't know it, he would tell you. You need to learn this. You need to. I don't come from a background he does. He is a guy that is in a shop, owns his own shop, is turning wrenches, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. I'm hunting sponsors. I'm doing a lot of the things that it takes to financially make it happen. And he's the guy that's turning wrenches and things like that. So sometimes it was like oil and water. Other times it was okay.
Mm-hmm. So you moved on. So I've also I did my homework for actually.
Okay.
So I saw I went on a couple of your posts and stuff, and went back and looked at some of the days.
Sure.
And you had to do some stuff with spotting for MBM. What's that like working with Carl? I mean, I know I'm not trying to be anything rude, but it's not like they're not the best funded team out there. What's that mean to you to help out somebody like that and get to be a spotter in a NASCAR race?
Sure, that was cool. So I was, as you mentioned, underfunded team. Down, I would say significant horsepower, but down horsepower, down aerodynamic wise. I mean, they don't get wind tunnel time. That team. I mean, they can't afford it. So they're running 2, 3, 4-year-old cars sometimes. So to be able to spot for them was, guys, we are going to go down a lap or 2, and the biggest thing was looking ahead. You've got to read. Okay, Carl. Leader's coming. He's 40 back. Leader coming 30 back. And then sometimes basically you don't want to get ran over. You do not want to get in the leader's way. Kyle Busch is leading the Xfinity race. You want to make sure that you're out of his way. You don't want TV time for getting in the leader's way. That's not cool. That's not good for your sponsors. That's not good for anybody. So the biggest thing was keeping the driver, hold your lane kind of a deal.
Mm-hmm.
So let's say he goes in and two leaders come in either side of him, inside and out. Hold your lane, you're in the middle. So those things, and not to get excited. So as an announcer, I want to get excited. As a spotter, you have to be even keel. Don't scream, don't yell, don't holler, don't carry on. Just give them information and shut up. Because you're on the same channel as the crew chief too. So if the crew chief needs to say something, I need to be just information and be quiet. That's it. Just give my information, be quiet kind of deal. Mm-hmm. So the other thing is getting them through a wreck. Hey, we got one in the wall in turn one. Hey, he's coming across the racetrack. Go high, go high, go high. That kind of thing. So it was fun. It's intense.
Mm-hmm. For sure.
It's a weird thing watching a car go down the front straightaway and using binoculars on the back. That's a weird thing. That transition. You want to make sure you don't lose your car. So learned a little bit there. I enjoyed it. I'd like to do it again, but those are very competitive jobs and a lot of time gone. A lot of time on the road.
Yeah. So looking at a photo, I got a couple of your photos that you sent me. Looking at this one photo, you were hopping into a sports car. What was that deal about? What was that?
So, yep, I had a sponsor, Bubba Burger, sponsored me for quite a few years. They've now transitioned completely out of motorsports, and they're going to PGA golf. So, I'd love to see them come back to racing, but it is what it is. Sponsorships change all the time. Relationships change. Still good friends with a lot of the people there. But so Bubba Burger had sponsored me in a monster truck and a lady by the name of Shay Holbrook in a sports car. And I had done a lot of road course karting, and I ended up being pretty good at it. So I'm like, I really want a chance to test one of these cars. So I went through the sponsor and said, hey, is there a way we could arrange this? There was a set fee, which is fine. There's always got to be money attached. But so I went out there. The first thing I did, I went in a two-seater at a place called, where was it? Oh, it's called The Firm in North Florida. It's a sports car testing facility. Went there and rode around with one of their pro drivers just to learn the course, look at shifting points, things like that. I was in a full helmet, fire suit, the whole 9 yards. Rode with them in the two-seater, and then came out and ran Shay's car. And again, I can run girls' cars because I'm a skinny guy. We didn't have to change much, so jumped in there. The car felt really great, and kept picking up time. And at the end of the test, they asked me if I wanted to race sports cars full time with them, and I'm like, yeah, sure. And they're like, well, you need to go find $14,000 then. I'm like, well, don't have that right now.
Well, there.
What was cool about that was I wanted to see if I had what it took to race road course, and I ended up being really good at it. And it was I'm not trying to toot my own horn, but you never really know until you get in it, in the situation, able to hit the shifting points and work your car around the road course. And I can tell you that the crew chief came up after it. He was like, man, you know how to do this. This is good. Are you sure you haven't done this before? And I'm like, no, I haven't. But and it all came down to money. I didn't have the $14,000 to go racing. So love to get in a road course car again. Mm-hmm. I guess I'll pretty much drive anything. I don't care.
Mm-hmm. So you also get to announce the Volusia Nationals in February, which that's actually coming up in about 59 days. Matter of fact, I have the countdown.
Dirt Car Nationals. There's also Sunshine Nationals 2 weeks before that at Volusia, which is an entire late model program. Mm-hmm. So there's I think 3 different divisions of dirt late models headed there, and then of course Dirt Car Nationals down there at Volusia. Mm-hmm.
So what's that like for you, getting to go down there for pretty much 2 months of just a pure racing, getting to see different drivers, meet different people, hang out with the fans? Well, I mean, this year it's going to be a little different, but hang out with the fans.
Let's talk to Dirt Car today, and it is 100% open at this point for fans. They have not been told anything different by the state of Florida or Volusia County. What's good about that is, so Daytona International Speedway and Volusia Speedway are actually in the same county. So that's a positive because the state's going to do everything they can because of the economic impact of Daytona International Speedway. The state's going to do everything they can to make the Daytona 500 happen with fans. So, because Volusia is just down the road, they may be able to garner those fans as well and say, hey, Daytona's doing it, we can do it. I mean, Dirt Car National is going to happen either way. I mean, you saw with the Oktoberfest deal, they ran on their vision, and there you have it. So, you go back to drivers, it's weird. So, I don't announce UMP Dirt Car Modifieds at all throughout the year. And I have 125 cars to learn names, sponsors. I have some spreadsheets I work with. Rick Eshelman.
That was just what I was going to ask you about. What's it like working with him?
Rick is the most hilarious announcer I've ever worked with. We joke the entire time. He has so much fun. Him and his girlfriend, Melissa, my wife, and we hang out with them. Rick is hilarious. The amount of jokes that this guy can tell, and how smooth he is with transitioning to, serious racing to, hey, we're under caution and I'm going to tell a joke. I mean, he's just so good. I love working with him. I feel like we have pretty good chemistry together. And, but yeah, he's great. So he has this I'm not kidding. He has multiple shoe boxes in his trunk that he carries with him, cataloged of every driver, of every car, of every division he's ever announced in his career. And he'll literally pull them out and say, this guy's here, this guy's here, this guy's here, this guy's here, stack them all together, hand them to me, and I put them on my iPad, and it's phenomenal. Like, chassis manufacturers, motor manufacturer, every sponsor the guy's ever had, information about his family. I mean, it's just, Rick is a walking encyclopedia. It's phenomenal what he does.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, he sees everybody. He sees all these guys all year long. I don't. I see him one time. Yeah. But Rick's phenomenal.
Mm-hmm. So you get, like I said, you get to go down there. You get to meet different people, all that stuff. What's that atmosphere like? I mean, I know Rick is probably the most helpful part for you. But what's that atmosphere with all the fans from all around the world that are going to come for the Daytona 500, but yet they still come to Volusia on a weekly night because Daytona's not to the weekend? What's that like on the weeknight to have all these fans from pretty much all over the world?
It's like the Super Bowl of racing every night. The place is packed wall to wall. And in fact, Brian Carter, which you interviewed at Leeds, I believe, Brian Carter has put a capital investment into Volusia Speedway. Long term, that place is going to be a jewel. I mean, it's headed there right now. The brand new grandstands they built. This will be my first time in the brand new tower. They bought a tower, an announcer's tower, scoring tower, whatever, from a college football team, I think.
Oh boy, that's big.
And they craned that thing and set it up on top of the brand new grandstand. I think it's got 8, 9, 10 suites in it.
Woo!
But it's so to give announcers a completely different view of everything. But it also makes the walk to victory lane like 4 times longer. I think there's like 112 steps or something to get to victory lane.
Well, the guys that for Oktoberfest are fortunate enough that Mike Warren was the pit reporter, so he sent him down into it.
There you go.
So you also work with a company called if I'm wrong, I'm sorry, X-Flex?
But,
X-Flex?
Yeah, so X-Flex is a product owned by my company, Morey Racing LLC, and we manufacture a NASCAR crash tape. So when you see our main competitor, if you've ever heard of Bear Bond, that's our competitor. So my wife and I manufacture 3-foot long, 1 foot wide patches of peel back material that these guys can put their cars back together, trucks back together, whatever, in a wreck, and they can slap them back together, go back out there and gain some points. Came up with that idea actually before Bear Bond came out. I don't know. So Bear Bond is right in Mooresville. And so me not being in Mooresville, I can't touch and feel all these teams and talk to them and do a sales pitch weekly like they can. I remember watching a race. Gosh.
Excuse me, Todd. You could keep. Sorry to interrupt you, but I gotta run to use the bathroom. I know it's a little weird, but I'll be. You can keep talking. What? I can't hear you. I'll be right back.
This isn't awkward at all, is it? I wonder if you'll edit this, like the bathroom sequence. I'm trying to figure out what's on his walls too. There's a race car back there. I'm not sure who that is. That's a wrestler over there. There's two chicks on the top. I'm not. Oh, that's Hulk Hogan. Looks like. I don't know.
Okay, we're back. All right, so back. No, I had to grab something. I didn't have to use the bathroom. I had to grab something though. So
Okay,
back.
you pick us back up.
So back where we were talking about the X-Flex tape,
Yeah.
and here we got a picture with you and Stewie. So you and Stuart Friesen are actually you got to deal with Stuart Friesen, where Stuart Friesen actually uses. So if he unfortunately crashes, he uses your tape, which is pretty cool.
Never has to use it. So, that's a local tie. Stuart's in Sprakers, and I went to school with Jessica. I think she was a couple years behind me, but always liked watching her race. And then her and Stuart got together, and I thought, hey, it's a local guy that is also on the national scene, and we're gonna give them some crash tape that I hope they never use for their Gander Outdoors Truck Series effort and for their modified. And I owe him some decals. That makes me. I remember that now. I owe him some decals for next year, so you'll see those on the truck and on the car. And I'm actually going to talk to. I messaged Jessica, and we're probably going to do some T-shirts next year and go through onesie tees for them. So anyway.
Yeah. So back. Okay. So that'd be interesting. I'll definitely probably look into buying one of them shirts. So during the break and COVID and all that, iRacing, it sparked. I mean, it's been there for so long, but it sparked during COVID. What have you gotten to try out iRacing, and what are your initial thoughts on iRacing?
So, when iRacing kicked in for the World of Outlaw late models, UMP Dirt Car Modifieds, all that stuff, Christina Cordova from World Racing Group called and said, hey, we want you and Rick to announce the iRaces. There's no other racing. We want you to announce it. So the first few I actually did from the Dirt Vision studio. We social distanced in there during that really, that was a really hot time of COVID, that early onset deal. So announced at their studio, and then they got me hooked up and showed me how to. It's a totally different login for. I think it's called Race Spot or something. Anyway, there's a totally different login and app to be able to watch it, not participate, but watch it and announce it. So I had a headset with two different people in one ear, and then another person in the other ear, and I did it from a radio station in South Florida. So it was odd, but it was a resume builder, something different, something new. And actually, I did it for probably 6 weeks, and I really enjoyed it.
Mm-hmm.
But I've never iRaced myself, ever.
You ought to try. You ought to look into trying it. It's actually really awesome. And speaking of, the big blocks are actually going to be added next week, so that's going to be cool for me personally to get to go on that and race with Stewie and Anthony Perego and all the best guys out there.
Are those guys? Do those guys have rigs? Friesen and
Yep.
Perego and all those guys have rigs?
Mm-hmm.
That's cool.
Well, they might have what I have, which is literally a $200 wheel with a computer.
Yeah, but so look at what Timmy Hill did with that.
Yeah.
Timmy didn't have a $40,000 rig.
He's got like a $500. Yeah, because Dale Jr.
He went and won Texas.
Yeah, because Dale Jr. offered him a one of those rigs And
He's like, I'm good.
Timmy turned it down. He's like, I don't like those. I want my rig. That's too technical.
I mean, it's what you're used to. I mean, it's just like in a race car. You might, there's guys with coil bound setups, and there's guys with different setups, and it's just what you're used to. And obviously things are evolving all the time on the racing side of things too. When you're on the track and people are trying new things and trying to stretch rules, and it's all a changing business all the time. You probably got to change with it, but we do get comfortable sometimes for sure.
Mm-hmm. So I'm only gonna ask a couple more questions. I don't want to keep you here. I don't want to keep you here all night.
Okay.
If you could race against any driver, past or present, who would it be and why? And it can be from anywhere.
Wow. This is so weird, but so my brother, he's a manager at GE in Schenectady.
Yeah.
And my brother is. We've tested together a little bit, and I went the racing route, and he went the corporate route. And if I would love to be in competition with my brother, in equal cars. I don't care I don't care if it's a road course, pavement, oval, dirt oval, doesn't matter to me. I don't know if I'll ever be able to, but I'd love to be able to race my brother.
All right, that's different. It is.
Not a quite so famous person, but
Hey, for me, it would be racing with. Honestly, it'd be racing with Stewie. That's pretty much for me personally. Or I mean, there's a couple other like I have a wall. I'll show the people. I have a wall right here with about thousands of drivers on it. So to race any of them drivers on that wall right there would be pretty much my dream. Like, there's some people on there like.
So the viewers aren't seeing what I'm seeing.
No, they are gonna be. They see the viewers can see. Well, they can see you, and then they can see the computer, and then if I turn my tripod around, there's my banner, all that stuff, and then I got all these great.
They don't see the two chicks above your head then.
Well, I can show them that too, but.
We were talking about that when you went to the bathroom. So.
Oh. Great. I'll have to go back and watch that.
Oh my god, you better. I thought you had edited this thing. Alright, I guess this is raw. Hogan behind you or what?
No, that's Ultimate Warrior. Yeah, that's Hogan, and then that's Ultimate Warrior.
I'm not a wrestling guy at all. I knew Hogan. I didn't know who the other guy was.
Yeah. Okay.
I'm trying to make this as awkward as humanly possible.
Yeah, you made it that. Oh shoot. So if you got offered to like race at like a big block modified or a late model or like sprint car to go race Volusia for the week or the 2 weeks, would you accept it?
Absolutely. Yeah, I've actually got a couple of tests lined up for one for a sportsman and one for a big block. As soon as the snow clears in the spring, I'm headed to 2 different states to just try it. I've got some connections, and I'm going to go to a test day and just try it out to see if I can do it. I'm actually very frustrated driving a 4-cylinder car because I'm used to 1,500 horsepower on dirt.
Yeah.
I think 80. I don't know what it is, but the horsepower is not great with a 4-cylinder. But I wanted to race, so that was the least expensive, most economical way to race was a 4-cylinder.
I'm so high.
But I need to get into something, with rear-wheel drive where I can slide the car around and things like that. It is so frustrating to try to get back to the throttle with a front-wheel drive car. I'm having fun because I'm racing, but I need to get into a rear-wheel drive car to be able to do something and show that I understand the line to run and I have car control, those kind of things.
So this is gonna be the final question, then we'll do a little sponsor shout outs and stuff. So out of all the things that you have done in your career, what out of everything, announcing any of it, what has to be your favorite part?
Wow. Well, can I give you one for announcing and for racing?
Yeah.
Okay. So, I'll give you the racing one first. I was in Toronto, Rogers Center, where the Blue Jays play. Monster Jam, 2-day show, and it was the wheelie competition. And every driver kept hitting the same wheelie jump. You have a choice as a driver what you hit for wheelie competition. Can you do a slack wheelie? Can you do all these different things? So I was last up, and I noticed that no one had hit this one. So when Monster Jam builds their jumps, they build them in such a way that sometimes there's like an extra lip or something. I'm going to have to give you two with monster trucks, and I'll tell you why. So anyway, there was this one jump where I could see if you just kind of blip the throttle just a little and then let your nose come down, there was a lip. And if you punch the front of the truck into that lip, it would shoot the truck straight up in the air. It would come down on the rear end, and you could walk it across the floor. And it's exactly what I did, and ended up beating 15 of the best monster trucks in that competition, just because I noticed something that I think other people didn't. And then my first backflip I landed. That was awesome. That was in Red Bluff, California. They had never had a backflip done in that stadium, and I landed in front of a sold out crowd, and that was phenomenal. Announcing wise, hands down, being able to work with Ken Squire. That was a dream, because he's such a legend with radio, television, back with CBS, with MRN, all the things he's done, all the knowledge he brings, and he is not afraid to tell you when you do something wrong. And that's what I like about him. You'll be announcing a race, and we'll go to commercial break, or we'll go to something else, and he'll say, don't do that again, and here's why. And it just, Ken Squire just told me to fix something, so I'm going to do it. So working with Ken and announcing, absolutely. Winning in Toronto and landing a backflip in Red Bluff, California, those are the highlights for sure.
Nice. All right, well, that's all I'm going to have for the question-wise. You got anything you want to ask me?
I do. Obviously, you've been on the mic a little bit, working and working your up. How did you get your start? Because I don't know if I've ever asked you that question.
So, this is actually, it's kind of weird, honestly. It was right during COVID. As a matter of fact, right when that March hit and everything was boring and I had nothing to do. Literally, everybody was like pretty much ready to take a nap and call it permanent nap for a while. I was just bored one day, and I'm like, you know what? I'm gonna start a podcast. And I told my mom and dad, and they looked at me like I had 500 heads. You're like, you and a podcast? What are you talking about?
Think about what my parents thought when I was doing stuff. They're like, hey, when are you gonna get a real job? Oh.
So I told my mom, I'm like, yeah, I'll give it a shot, see what happens. And I was big into iRacing when it all broke out, and I happened to become friends with Landon Castle through iRacing, which he's a great guy. And I shot a message to him on DMs on Instagram, and he actually ends up answering back, yeah, I'll do a podcast. So I ended up getting Landon Castle to come on for my first show. I was nervous as ever. My face was beat red. I was like, what am I doing? Like a little bit like I was earlier. My face was all puffy. But I did the show with him, and people loved it. I started getting some like local drivers like Rocky Warner, those guys. And they then I got the call from Dirt Track Digest. Not the call. Well, yeah, message from Dirt Track Digest. Hey, we want you to come work for your team. So I did that. I accepted that internship, and then I started doing some stuff for them and doing live interviews after the race. Then I was fortunate enough to meet you, and you started taking me under your wing a little bit. And then pretty much just after, and then I met Jay.
I have a guest here. Hang on.
You're good.
It's my niece.
You're good.
This is Nathan.
So I got in contact with Jay Severson because I met Jay through Fonda, and I was in the pits and all that stuff, and Mimi Lazaro took me up into the tower for one night just to say, hey, let's go meet Jay, yada, yada, yada. I'm like, all right, I'll go meet Jay. I don't know who he is, but I'll go meet him.
Oh, she waved to you.
And I went and met Jay, and Jay, like, right then, like, fell in love, like, not in that way, but fell in love with what I do and all that stuff. Fell in love with what I do. And he said, well, here's what I'll do. Next week, you come back. Even though there's no fans, you come back next week. I'll let you come on the mic. I'm like, all right. Now you got me, and I'm texting him through the midweek. You got me nervous and more than ever. You want me to come on the mic? I've never done this before. He's like, yeah. I also want to tell you. I talked to Butch Hazard. He said you can come announce us the rest of the year. I'm like, oh, jeez.
Perfect. You're enjoying it for sure.
Yeah, so I've never announced before. I go into the tower at night. I call a limited sportsman race. Carter Gibbons goes over into turn one. He starts tumbling end over end. So I'm like, I'm calling that, and I'm like, did I say something wrong? Because I got very into it. He's like, no, that was perfect. I'm like, okay. And then Butchie. Then the next night, I went to go hang out with at the Ridge with Jay and Dan, and ever since then, Butchie has loved me for that. And then, like I said, I went and did some stuff at Wheat Sport with you and all that. I got to watch what you did, and for a lot of people, COVID has been probably the worst time ever. But for me, that had the 2020 summer has probably been my best moment ever in like my life.
Well, you found the silver lining for sure. So.
Yeah, this podcast is shot up since I started it. I didn't expect it to be where it is already. And it's once I get it out once I get this video out, it's probably gonna skyrocket even more once I send it to you.
I hope so. I hope you get to interview a lot more people that are a lot more interesting than me.
Well, I'm not gonna mention any names, but I do have a couple NASCAR guys that are gonna be coming on very soon for the people at home. So, anything else you want to ask me?
No, you know what? I'm good. I gotta go take care of this one. I'm on duty now.
Just before we go, any sponsorships or anybody you want to give a shout out to?
So a lot of you, there's quite a few that have been with me a while. Of course, everything from Simpson Race Products and Off Axis Paint that does my helmets. I really appreciate them. Love Bug Magic, really good company down in Florida that cleans love bugs right off of the front of cars. They are horrible down there. I don't know if you've ever heard of them, but Google them. They're horrific, and this product takes them right off the front of the cars. Andy Belmont, you may know that name. Belmont's Garage, a lot of helped me with wheels and tires here this year, and I'm probably missing a few.
Mm-hmm.
Oh my good, Safety Clean has helped me with all of my oils. Certainly for our bus, for the race car, they stepped up in a big way and really helped us out. All the pig mats from the shop. So yeah, I got a lot of partners that have really helped out a lot. Desiree Morey, my sister-in-law, she's helped us out a ton. She's a realtor for Howard Hanna Realty. You need a house, call Des. Hit me up on social media. We'll get you guys connected. So, and Little Maven.
You got somebody in the background.
There you go.
I was just gonna say, I was like, you're gonna leave her out. Oh boy.
Such support from her for sure. I say, hey, we're gonna go to a race. She's all in. 100%. I drive there, she sleeps back. It's perfect.
It's fine. Back to what I was saying. Also another experience I got to have was it was mid-season too for Fonda. I got a mutual friend request from Alan Bestwick, and I'm like, wait a second, is this the real Alan Bestwick, or is this some guy I don't know? And I look at his profile, and it's the real Alan Bestwick. So I'm like, well, that's cool. He followed me, and my mom goes, you need to reach out to him. Maybe he'll come on the show. And so I did, and we booked a show, and he actually came on, and that was pretty much one of the highlights of my summer was getting to interview Landon Castle, Alan Bestwick, and now you.
Well, I don't know about all that. Alan Bestwick was way up here. We actually, I announced next to him. He was in the booth over from me when I was at Atlanta. He was in the next booth, Charlotte. He was in the next booth over. It's interesting. So the track announcers at those tracks, the TV booth is right next to us, and it's glass right there. So it's like, hey, there's Rusty Wallace. There's Alan Bestwick. There's Rick Allen. It's interesting situation there. You're all kind of jammed in the same spot just above the start-finish line.
Mm-hmm. Awesome. Well, thank you very much for being on the show. Everybody watching at home, thank you guys for tuning into this long episode, which is actually a good thing. I needed one like this because it's been so long since I've been on the show. Out of the Fast Lane, partners you with DirtTrackDigest.com, and we're talking with I got some other things I'm going to be lining up soon. But other than that, make sure you guys like, comment, and subscribe. It means a lot, all the support and love. We also are talking about possibly dropping a merch line, so make sure you guys stay tuned for that. And other than that, thank you guys for watching, and take care.